If you lived with us as a permanent item, you didn't have a separate pasture. So you wouldn't know one animal from the next until you asked, and then I would tell you.
Right.
But yeah, we ran quite a few different farms.
And some of those were there a long time.
Oh, some of them were there. Well, some were there, from the time that I started. I started them there, and they stayed for 15 years. Some came and some went. There were some that were there before I was there and left at some point. But yeah, we at Magical ran a lot of different farms, and I also, it's I think relatively well known that T&T Farms was also managed, run, and based off of the same property as Magical Farms.
And I just thought of something, and it's in the name. It's Magical Farms. You've used the plural there to some extent. But again, an idea just to throw out that if you've got the space and the location and such, and you have currently 20 alpacas yourself, and rather than just selling two, why not? You have two people. You have a couple that wants to start with two alpacas. They don't have property. And they don't really ever even want to. You could have their farm at your farm. Just an idea. Just something to think about.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, I knew you did it a little. I didn't realize the extent of it, and I really saw it there in that sort of that in time there, because those people were now having to figure out where to transition to. Obviously.
Right. Well, and that obviously when Magical Farms was retiring, our long-term boarders had to make other arrangements. I was actually very successful in assisting with the majority of that. Some of them did it all by themselves, but some of them didn't have the connections, and I was able to help them relocate their animals into with somebody else who was going to help manage their herd.
Well, let's switch gears even a little bit more here and talk about another thing related to your transition. So you said earlier you still have T&T Farms. Magical Farms at one time was the largest in terms of total numbers, and you were managing that. You're now managing with your brother T&T. How are you going to change the way you make breeding decisions today with a much smaller number of animals versus the way you did them at Magical? I asked Scott Miller the same question, by the way, because he's now in a very similar situation. Although he hasn't left the animals, he's still running Crescent Moon, but the numbers are dramatically different. So the numbers have to do just with the fact that the vast majority of the herd has gone other places. In your case, you just have a much smaller number. So again, the question: how are you going to do things a little differently breeding-wise? And it kind of leads to a bigger question about your breeding thoughts and philosophies.
Yeah. Now, well, I was spoiled, I have to say. So I had access to the Magical Farms herd sires when I was looking at T&T animals. I was, kind of kid in the candy store. I had the ability to pick and choose whatever I wanted,
right?
From there, which that's an advantage, I have to say, and I'll make no bones about it. Yep, I had an advantage there. Now the T&T animals are a little bit spread, so they are residing with multiple friends and partners, and some of the breeding decisions will be left to the partners because they now are 50% owner of the animals. Right. And if they have, their own ideas, I am going to